Hello and welcome back. This week, we're going to do a topic that is going to hopefully inspire you to think and reflect and look for similarities. This week, we're going to be talking to my longtime good friend, Krystal. And Krystal has had a phenomenal journey with her weight loss. And while her method was with bariatric surgery, if you've ever had that as an option to consider or have had the surgery yourself, but now you're within the fasting community, I challenge you to listen really closely for these fantastic and similar lessons and bits of wisdom that can be found throughout each of our weight loss journey. And truly, listening to her testimonial, you will hear throughout that there are lessons that I've even said myself and recommended for you all to utilize on your weight loss journey, especially pertaining to her relationship to food, the speed of her weight loss journey, and more. And side note, I love and respect all my friends out there who also have had that same and similar journey with bariatric surgery. So while I do not advocate for it personally, understand that everybody has a choice. Everybody has a choice. And when Krystal chose bariatric surgery, it wasn't just for weight loss. There was some life-saving decisions in there as well. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Fasting Focused Lifestyle Podcast, where each week I will be discussing all things fasting and how it can become the most valuable tool in your personal toolkit so that you can live a long, healthy, and meaningful life. I'm your host, Vicki Sharon, and thank you for joining me. Welcome back to the Fasting Focused Lifestyle Podcast. This week is another interview with one of my now long-term friends from way back when we went to school together at Plymouth State. And coincidentally, she now teaches in the school that I actually went to as a child. So coming full circle like that and keeping those long-term friends. So we've never really lost touch. But regarding why she's here with us today is she's had also tremendous, I just got goosebumps, tremendous weight loss. And from all the things that I see from her, just incredible changes in the right direction. Now, her method may be different than the method that I utilized and advocate for as well, but I am super interested in getting her unique angle to find and understand and see and hear those similarities in the overall weight loss journey in itself and how those similarities really can be learning lessons for folks that are on their own weight loss journey, whether they're integrating elements of intermittent fasting with the lifestyle that they have already going for them. So without any further ado, I want to introduce my friend, Krystal. So Miss Krystal, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Vicki, for having me. It's an honor and it's a pleasure. And it's amazing how life has those interesting ways of connecting you.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. Krystal, I want to let you give a little bit of an intro. You can give as much or as little as you'd like about your backstory, what led you up until the decision to make those changes for your health and wellness and overall longevity.
Yeah, perfect. So I am a bariatric patient. So I am here to share my story today about weight management, the challenges and the success. Mm-hmm. My struggles have always been lifelong, which interestingly enough, my struggles with weight management actually inspired me to become a health teacher. Mm. So I've had the privilege of teaching health to middle schoolers, mostly middle school. Sometimes I may have taught at the high school or elementary level. Mm-hmm. But most recently, due to the teacher shortages, which we've all seen with COVID, my position has changed. So now I'm the old-fashioned home economics teacher or the family.
Oh, that's awesome. Teacher. That's so awesome. I'm so glad Raymond still does that, by the way. Yeah, that's fantastic. Let's keep that up.
Right. So one of the cool things I love about this new position, which depending on which student you might talk to, they might love it, or they might be like, yeah, she can go back to being the health teacher.
Yeah.
I teach students how to alternate their everyday treats into healthier options. So like if we're going to be making brownies, let's try to add some more nutrition to it. Oh, like black beans. So there's a recipe that I like for that. The students tend to prefer the deep dish cookie, which has chickpeas in it. And then there's like the chocolate avocado pudding. So I feel like it's kind of cool that I'm now doing this because I don't think if it wasn't for my weight loss journey or my weight management struggle that I would be interested in teaching kids how to make healthier options like that. So as a child, I did grow up with adverse childhood experiences, and I most definitely self-medicated with fat, sugar, and salt. So I have had a psychiatrist say, like, you know, most kids in your situation would have had other issues with like substance abuse. And I never did. I had resilience, but I definitely treated myself with fat and salt. I mean, one of my earliest memories of misusing food, I remember drinking the apple juice that in kindergarten that was supposed to be for the entire class. And then I can remember my father buying, like, do you remember like those little Debbie snacks? Like the little oatmeal cream pies or like little cupcakes or whatever. So I grew up in a large house, and I being the middle child, it was easy to blame the older brother. Like, you know, where did the box go? You know, but I was definitely misusing the food for comfort. So fast forward, you know, at the young age of 13 years old, you know, after my parents divorced, I'm living in a domestic violence shelter with my mother. And that's hard. I mean, there was a lot of things that I saw as a child that no human should ever see, let alone a kid, but food was also scarce. So like now there's like this food insecurity. And I would often go to bed just eating like a plain bowl of rice with butter or pasta with butter. You know, maybe once a week we would actually have a nice meal, but, I remember on paydays, I was always excited for mom's paydays because that meant that I could have like all the candy, like she'd be able to like buy candy. So like there's that self-medication piece. So fast forward, you know, the behavior still continuing whenever I had the opportunity. You know, I'm just, you know, self-medicating. So I was 6 feet tall by the end of middle school, but I don't remember how much I weighed. I know by high school, and I was like a junior or senior, I'm now about 292 pounds, and I'm 6 feet tall. I'm about a size 26 at this point. Definitely being a teenager, your emotions, they're everywhere. But then, you know, given all these adverse childhood experiences too, like, it's intense. But I also felt empowered that I was going to be able to, you know, put myself through college. You know, that despite the unmanaged mental health issues that my parents had, or despite the alcoholism that my father struggled with, and the homelessness, I would, you know, be in control of my future. So by the time that I'm in college, maybe like sophomore year, at this point, I've decided enough is enough. I'm uncomfortable. I needed to put together an action plan. So I did connect with a personal trainer out of Gold's Gym, I think, and we talked about nutrition. We talked about exercise. I started eating healthy. I became a gym rat. I don't remember the exact amount of weight that I lost. However, I do know I went down to a size 16 and I felt amazing. I was able to maintain that weight loss for several years, give or take maybe like 10, 15 pounds, which I think is a common thing that most people go through. I mean, even having gone to college, like I still didn't feel prepared for my first year of teaching. I don't know that anybody ever does. uh, but I still felt great because I was still maintaining that weight loss. But then it wasn't until I had a car accident in November of 2010 when things really came out of balance for me again. So most likely I had anxiety all along, all of those years, and I had kept myself together. But then when the tree fell on me while I was driving to school, that completely pulled the trigger. So now my anxiety is unleashed.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what was happening. I can remember, and it wasn't until like a couple months after the accident that I couldn't handle the emotions anymore because I was really horrified that I survived something so horrific.
Right.
So I went back to the sugar, the fat, and the salt, more specifically cheese, mozzarella sticks, pizza, whoopie pies. What was great about the whoopie pies is that I would feel horrible after eating two of them, that at that point I would feel kind of like numb and just fall asleep, like go to bed. Like, you're not feeling good after eating all that sugar.
I know that. Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, so the anxiety in itself was really paralyzing. And from that point on, I gained about 10, 15 pounds a year. I should mention I was probably about 25 when the accident happened. Being 25, I felt like I didn't really understand what was happening as far as like the upper back muscular injury. I didn't really get the memo that you're supposed to continue your stretches every day, even if you feel good.
Yeah.
So that would catch up to me later on because then I would be in so much pain that like I could not tolerate walking for 5 minutes. And I mean, so it's like this vicious cycle, like you're supposed to exercise to feel better, to lose weight, but yet I was just in so much pain that I didn't want to. Like I could barely handle cooking dinner.
Yeah.
Because of this back injury. So anyway, so it was a huge struggle. And it would be a couple of years before I would be able to get a handle on that anxiety. And then the other issue too, and again, being young, I just didn't really make the connections. I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS. So, which is fine and all, but I didn't really understand that, I could eat some sugar and then because of the insulin resistance, that's going to put me at a higher risk of, I don't know, higher risk is the word, but like, I'm going to gain more weight easily. Whereas I felt like I can look at a cupcake and just gain 10 pounds from looking at that cupcake. My friends can eat the cupcake and have like no issues.
Right.
So I was like fueling the fire already with the anxiety. So, at some point around 2014, I do want to mention before I talk about the surgery is that I had to like self-advocate with doctors and therapists that, I felt like all along I had an eating disorder and it took a long time to find a place that would help me because a lot of, services were about like treating the anxiety, which I appreciate. Like we needed to talk about and confront that anxiety and put that anxiety monster away, back in the closet, if you will. But I also felt like my relationship with food was impaired and I really wanted to tackle that. And I went through a couple of therapists and, maybe we had a great rapport or whatever, but I felt like it was superficial. And then I started up with a new therapist and the first session, she listened to me because I told her straight out, I need to address my food, like the relationship with the food. It's not healthy. And then she mentioned to me that she actually knew a clinic in the town next door to me that specialized in eating disorders.
Mm-hmm.
And I jumped up all over that. So I started going to the Center for Eating Disorder Management in Bedford. I started out in 2014. I did their IOP program, the intensive outpatient. I mean, that was a lot of work. Like that in itself felt like a part-time job because that was like a good 12, 16 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
And, but by doing that and then seeing their therapist that dug deep into the core issues, I felt like I was able to address the relationship and be able to repair the food. The eating disorder in itself didn't just like go away on its own.
Right.
And actually, if anything, I felt kind of like triggered and things made upped itself a little bit before things got better.
Yep. It's got to get worse before it gets better is what I found for a lot of things, and not just with like pain,
Right.
Crazy.
No, it's so true. Like even when you're going through the process of making things better.
Yeah.
But I felt like that was the piece to the puzzle missing all along, was addressing and doing all the cognitive behavioral therapy, becoming mindful and skillful. COVID was a very stressful time, but I felt like because I had, I don't want to say necessarily become friends with the anxiety monster, but I was able to put that anxiety monster to sleep.
Right.
And deal with life issues head on. I was able to put the anxiety monster to sleep, and I was able to deal with the issues like head on and dive into food for comfort when it came to,
addressing those emotions as they come up is extremely challenging, but it kind of forces you to take a look at those uncomfortable aspects of what your comfortable behavior was before. And, as we've always told, like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different outcomes. But it's like, we have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And, the more that we talk and connect, the more I'm just like, girl, we are so much alike, more than we realize. And one of the things that I did throughout my weight loss journey, it was probably my high time was like 2019. But I remember lots of times that I would spend deliberately choosing to be away from food, away from those visual temptations, because I'm a visual person. And one of the things I would like to do is watch empowering, like inspirational kind of videos, and not like, ooh, like woo woo kind of thing, but truly like awe-inspiring, like wow, deep, motivating, kind of resonating thing. And, low key shout out, like I'm not linked or anything to them, but there's this channel on YouTube called Yes Theory. And their mantra is like, seek discomfort. And a lot of the stories that they do have just really great lessons and things that they touch upon in their videos. Now they're like young guys in their like mid late 20s. So like they kind of like a little bit like a bro, but regardless of that, like it's incredibly, I get goosebumps. It's incredibly endearing, inspiring, motivating. Truly, it can coincide with like any of the hardships and things that you're experiencing in life. But to me, that I took it as like, I'm going to continue to challenge myself and not be complacent with just like cruise control, right? Like if you want those changes, you have to be hungry for those changes. You have to have that will, that drive, that, doing things like I keep getting told that I am unlike any other person, like when I have other consults with my folks, but it's kind of like that Steve Jobs analogy where you kind of have to be ready to do something different, to challenge what you've known from the beginning all the way up until where you are. That if you're unhappy with how things are going, that if you're alive, obviously there's still time to implement change.
Absolutely. And like, part of me feels a little bummed out that like I'm towards the end of my 30s and like I'm finally feeling amazing. But
Totally
the other thing is like, time's not wasted. I'm still young. And I'm actually kind of excited that like the 40s are going to be like the new 30s for me. I have all these skills and, just going back to what you're saying, like, if you're constantly doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. It's like, I'm glad I advocated for myself and continued the search to find that answer when it came to
Mhm.
looking to start that healing process with the food. And like I knew, well, part of it, like I'm a health teacher, so like I'm talking about eating disorders with my students, and it's
Yeah.
like this is me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but like I had to advocate,
Yeah.
I had to believe in myself, but to also believe that I just couldn't lose hope.
Mhm.
So,
That's awesome.
but bringing me to like what brought me to bariatric surgery.
Mhm.
Um, so it wasn't until the fall of 2020 that I had a little bit of a medical emergency. But before I get to that, I just want to mention that during that spring of 2020, so this is during the shutdown,
Mhm.
I thought I was going a little crazy because I felt my body being itchy and there was
Mhm.
never any rash. So
Mhm.
I always thought like if you had itchy skin that there should just be a rash to go along with it. But
Mhm.
after like several weeks of this itchy skin from, front and back and the extremities, I finally went and saw the dermatologist, and apparently it's an indication of potential liver issues. So
Okay.
that was kind of like a little indication or like foreshadowing, if you will, that
Mhm.
little storm was brewing. So it's now September of 2020. I weigh about 373 pounds. So I've gained all that weight back from college and then
Mhm.
some.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm feeling really uncomfortable. I could barely tolerate walking 5 minutes without being uncomfortable, like in pain.
Yep.
Didn't
I
like
remember
cooking.
when you came to see me, you had a walking brace on, if I remember
Oh
correctly.
yeah. Well, I broke my toe working at the state park.
Yeah.
Who does that? Who does that? Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. So I mean, at this point, I'm going back to physical therapy. And it was awkward physical therapy because of
Mhm.
COVID, all these
Yeah.
restrictions.
Yep.
Um, but I'm trying to work up my ability to tolerate more walking. But so what ended up happening was in September, I had an ovarian cyst ruptured,
Mhm.
so that was painful.
Yep.
But it was during the CAT scan to figure out what was going on that they flagged my liver at this
Mhm.
point. So I remember when the ER doctor came back to me, he's like, "I don't want you to panic." Which who likes to hear
You
that when
start with that. That's a bad thing to start with. That's a bad thing to start with.
but they're like, we just found a couple of little masses on your liver. And it was
Hmm.
like, oh, really? And I'm like, actually, that's not too completely shocking that you're flagging my liver because I have been told from the dermatologist. But like, it's never comforting to hear about, we've just found some masses on your
Yeah.
liver.
Oh yeah.
Um, so from there, I went to see the hepatologist. I hope I'm saying that correctly, the liver
Mhm.
specialist. And from there, I had two MRIs.
Mhm.
And I didn't like it when they called me back for the second MRI. And it wasn't because of like poor imaging, they just needed more information. They determined that basically the PCOS was not playing kindly with the liver. And part of that is
Mhm.
the birth control, which that doesn't play nice with the liver. There was like this little cycle going on. The PCOS and the liver and the obesity and being insulin resistant, it was just creating a hot mess. They determined that I was developing non-alcoholic fatty liver.
Mhm.
And I did have other masses though because of the birth control. And what's hard is that like I'm on the birth control to help manage the PCOS, but that still wreaks
Yeah.
havoc on the liver.
Yeah. That
So
domino effect.
yes, and it's actually really frustrating because like you
Mhm.
don't think to read the small print
Yeah.
in the pamphlets when you get the medication. So anyway, at this point, the hepatologist was like, Krystal, it doesn't look that great in the sense that if you continue with how you're living, we're talking about cirrhosis of the liver in about
Yep.
10, 20 years.
Yep.
And I, for one, do not drink enough alcohol to warrant that, maybe like once every 6 months. So to me, it was like, if I get cirrhosis, I want to be enjoying that alcohol.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
So I don't like where this conversation is going.
Yeah.
So at that point, I mean, at this point, I already have sleep apnea. I already had acid reflux, and the back pain. I just was not feeling that great. Oh, and the itchy skin. The itchy skin in itself. So at that point, I was like, well, what do I need to do at this point? Should I really commit to intermittent fasting? Because I had played around with that idea, but I wasn't being consistent with it as I wanted to. So at that point, the hepatologist was like, well, if I can be selfish, I would have you do the bariatric surgery. And I was like, so you want to cut me up, like, what are we talking about here? So I actually took a week to think about it. And of course, my family was not thrilled about the idea at all. But I also did not like the idea of having cirrhosis.
Yeah.
And, I thought about like who I am as a health teacher, and I'm talking to kids about, you need to make the best decision for your everyday living. I thought about how I envisioned my life, and cirrhosis was not on my agenda.
Yeah.
And I thought about who I was as a younger person. I used to go on these hiking trips with my grandfather in the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
I used to enjoy horseback riding. I hadn't been on a horse in like forever. I decided at that point that I was not going to get cirrhosis of the liver. So within a week of having that appointment, I decided to explore the classes, start that conversation. And so I think this is like October, November. And by March of the following year, I went and I had that procedure. I will say, though, I think the biggest thing for me was having done all of that hard work with the cognitive behavioral therapy and having broken up with soda made me to be successful. I don't know that if I hadn't done that stuff, if I hadn't done the cognitive behavioral therapy, I don't know that I would have done okay with the procedure and with the with the whole process, because there's been a couple of times after having surgery that I've had strong emotions, just a couple of times, because I keep my emotions cool now. That little voice comes back in and says, like, you want to have that sugar, you just want to dive into that whoopie pie. And I can't. I physically cannot. And nor would I want to actually at this point. But like, I actually have to face that feeling, or to take on and tackle on that emotion and to experience it. And then sometimes it means sitting down and crying on the floor, and having to go through it and then experiencing that. My family was not thrilled about the decision. My mother, first of all, she could not handle the idea of what that surgery entailed, which is totally understandable. My brother, he was more focused on the risks.
Protect your brother.
Yes. I mean, because there are risks involved. He tried to tell me, well, what if you did this and what if you did that? But it's like, Rich, we know that I've done the yo-yo dieting before and that hasn't worked. I just don't like the idea of getting cirrhosis. And my sister, she also had her concerns, but she's also seen colleagues go through the procedure or go through the process before and have been very successful. So I had the surgery March 29th of 2021. Basically, the anatomy is altered to, change how much food I can eat. So basically, the pouch or the stomach that is working right now is about the size of an egg. I can eat a cup of food. There are some days where I'm hungry, and then there are some days where I'm like, not happening today. I'll drink my fluids. And it also changes on how the body absorbs nutrients. So because of that, I am going to be on supplements for the rest of my life. That is like a must have. So basically, like I pay my rent, and then before I spend my money on anything else, I get my supplements for the month.
Yep.
That's just how it is.
Yep.
And then I, pay the cell phone and whatever.
Yeah.
But like those supplements is a must have. It's like not negotiable. There is a 2-week liquid diet before the procedure. That was not fun. And it's to help to shrink the liver. And interestingly enough, as soon as I started that liquid diet, the itchy skin went away. And I haven't had the itchy skin at all since I've had that procedure done.
Was it something specific that you were drinking?
No. So if I remember correctly, the way that it was explained to me was that the liver produces a chemical, and then I'm probably not articulating it clearly, but then like the chemical like goes to the skin and it causes like a reaction.
Okay. The result is like histamines. There's like a histamine because there's really tied heavily integration with the immune system and the lymphatic system as well. Yeah,
and the liver, it's like trying to work really hard here too. And here I am like not giving it the healthiest foods at the time. On a quick side note, what was interesting about this too, I always thought like, wouldn't it be great if like I could just pause my life and like just work on my weight management? When my surgery was scheduled, it was right around the time that my kids were all remote. So I was able to do my liquid diet remotely. So because not for nothing, I definitely used food as a crutch. And if I got stressed out, it wasn't as difficult. So that was pretty cool. Waking up from the procedure, I definitely felt like I had eaten a Thanksgiving dinner. I was not in pain. So I have a high tolerance to pain from other life experiences, medically speaking. But that feeling of waking up like, oh my gosh, I just ate Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
And then they expect you to drink a certain amount of fluids before they discharge you from the hospital.
Yep.
And I was like, what? That's not going to happen. You expect me to eat Jell-O right now? Like I have no appetite. But what was cool was within 48 hours of having the surgery, I was out walking a mile.
Hey, wow.
That was pretty cool. And then, so maybe like a year and a half post-op, I was able to try to hike Mount Washington. So I've attempted it twice now. And I'm hoping this summer that I'll be able to actually hike make the summit. Yeah. But for those of you not from New Hampshire, Mount Washington is a beast.
Yeah. There's an additional like walking path. You wouldn't go on the auto road, right?
No, I prefer the Jewel Trail because that's one of the easier trails.
Gotcha. So it kind of like serpentines up the mountainside then?
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
I don't know that people in Florida
they probably. Well, this is listened to worldwide, so people all around the world are going to be hearing you as well. So.
Oh wow!
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Shout out to all my friends and people from like Australia and the UK and like all around.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy awesome. There was one thing I wanted to retouch that you mentioned that I didn't want to interrupt, but I wanted to have you expand a little bit. So when you were talking about pacifying those foods, pacifying the emotions with the food choices that you've got, and how like you didn't physically want the food, but your mind and emotions were like, have this. It reminded me of something that I talk a lot about in my consulting services when I coach folks. And I'm sure that they address this in CBD, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, Vicki. But I remember that this is something that I started doing early on, researched into it, coincided with my, schoolwork that I'm doing through Arizona State, and realized, wow, this is an actual thing. So I call them experience files. So it's being present-minded and aware to like realize I've obviously had this food that I'm craving before, but taking a moment, a pause, a meditative kind of like we're going to shut the world out for just a moment, whether you can close your eyes or not, and let yourself fully full senses, relive, re-experience, re-eat that food that you're craving to see if that's all that you need. Because the physical, both of us, girl, we know that that you want. And as soon as it goes to the mouth, it's like switch of guilt. I feel like this. But then it doesn't stop. It just keeps going. And there's no shutting it off until you have to flash the big, warning red, stop light. And I feel, and I've done this myself, others have implemented as well, that awareness of when that craving bubbles up. Hey, instead of giving into it, I'm going to give myself a moment. I'm going to step away and I'm going to re-eat it from my memories that I had before. Because then when you kind of reflect upon it and think about it as well, deep down to its core, that food may also tie into a memory. That food may also tie into, why you feel this. Ooh, I just got goosebumps. Why you feel this way, tied to maybe a feeling, emotion, really hard memory, someone that you miss, someone that you love, something that had that drastic change or moment in your life. So we don't think about it at the top level, but way underneath, the wheels and cogs are still rotating and stuff. But that practice of re-eating the food, smelling it, imagining with your eyes closed if you can, re-seeing it, smelling it, thinking about it, feeling it, not touching it, through your mind, and then taking a few swallows of your spit. Yeah, it's whatever, how gross you want to take it, but whatever. And re-eating it can be incredibly liberating.
You're absolutely right. Because I mentioned whoopie pies a few times. One of the things that I had to peel back, if you think about an onion having different layers, as to what that whoopie pie meant for me. Basically, it's a cake, if you will, with frosting. Yep. So it brought me back to when I was that child living in this big house, the Debbie snacks. Yep. But I think most importantly for me, when I was 13 and living in a domestic violence shelter, I can remember wanting to make something for Mom for Mother's Day. And there's not a whole lot going on. There was another woman that lived in the shelter that she knew how to decorate cakes. So I looked to see what we had around. There was a cake mix. There was, we had the eggs, the oil. I had ingredients for the frosting. So here's this woman, during her lowest point in life, showing me how to decorate a cake. So this is probably one of the most happiest memories, if that's even possible when you're in a shelter, where she's showing me her skills and her knowledge. And then I'm able to make this little cake for my mom to show her my appreciation for her for Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. And then that was something that's all I talked about for a long time was, Mom, remember that cake that I made you? So that I found happiness with that. Mm-hmm. But then later on, that would also come back to backfire on me, because when I could not deal with that emotion anymore of how did I just survive this horrific accident? Mm-hmm. I wanted to go dive into a cake. Yeah. And I told myself, I do not need to buy a cake. The compromise was just to buy those whoopie pies. But mm-hmm. then what would become one whoopie pie would become two. And then what would become one afternoon eventually became a whole pattern. And it was a spiral. So absolutely,
wow. So would you say that moment and that lesson that was taught to you in that moment was more about having that light of hope in a really hard situation, and that the way that you were able to replicate it each time was with that presence of this cake, without the true underlying reason of being resourceful, scrappy with what you've got around you and making the best out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's mind-blowing. I did want to mention some of the struggles and the challenges.
Absolutely.
With bariatrics. I don't think I've mentioned yet So as of June 2023, so I'm like, I would say more than 2 years post-op, not quite 2.5 yet. I am down 158 pounds, which is exciting. It's
That's awesome.
exciting.
That's awesome.
But with that, and I understand that, like, there's some challenges with the bariatric surgery. So one of which is the iron deficiency. So I mentioned earlier that with the procedure, it does change the way that the body processes the nutrients.
Yep.
And iron deficiency can be more of a common one, especially for a woman who is in her menstrual or going through menstrual cycles. So to combat that, I take an iron supplement. So I have to take about 90 milligrams a day. The downside to that is the constipation.
Yikes.
And that is a real thing. I thought I knew what constipation was before surgery. Yeah. I have learned since then that it's actually a little bit different than just what I thought it would be. But at the same time too, though, like, I'm weighing the good with the bad, the ugly with the good. I just remind myself, like, hey, I'm able to do A, B, and C now, so like, I've lost all this weight. I mean, and it's not an everyday occurrence, but it's a more frequent experience than, let's just put it this way. I've had more conversations with the doctors than I've ever cared to about. Then there's the hair loss. I mean, the hair loss is a guaranteed thing, 90 days post-op. So I dealt with that by chopping off my hair. I used to have long
hair.
Yep. But going back to that iron deficiency, see, I've gotten to know a dermatologist pretty well now, pre-surgery and post-op. But the iron deficiency can actually cause hair loss too. So that's not fun. So then there's the dumping syndrome. If I eat something with too much sugar, too much fat, and my body decides, hey, not today, it's going to come out quickly. And it could either come up like vomiting or diarrhea. And that's just a part of who I am now. Fortunately, I would say I tolerate all foods except for ice cream.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to eat a whoopie pie or anything. And if I do, it's only going to be 3 bites. And I'm perfectly content just with those 3 bites. I don't feel this need to have to, indulge in a whole lot.
Right.
Do I miss ice cream? Yeah, but I also feel like I'm living life.
Yeah.
And actually, I just saw a friend yesterday from college, and he and his wife were up in New Hampshire, and they went and got ice cream, and I did not feel like I was being deprived.
Good.
I'm sitting there in the sunshine at Lake Saki, catching up with an old friend. And, that to me was a beautiful moment. I definitely don't feel like I'm being deprived of an experience, if you will.
Good.
The cost of replacing clothes can be a challenge.
It's expensive. Yep.
And I would not change anything. The economy at the time, and, the challenges of being a teacher sometimes, like, is the contract going to pass? Like, am I going to get a pay increase or not? And then, the cost of rent and blah, blah, blah. That was hard. But it's also pretty cool too when, like, people in your life can share clothing with you. Maybe you've met someone at the YMCA, or, maybe you have a cousin that knows a really great thrift store. Those kinds of things. One challenge that I was not expecting was that my feet did shrink in size.
That too. That's how many sizes in shoes did you change?
Well, I only went down like half a size.
Okay.
Right now I have the summer off from teaching, and I don't really want to work right now if I don't have to. So it's like trying to stay within a certain budget. Like last summer, that's when I ran into the issue, and I wasn't wearing the most appropriate size, if you will, from the hiking boots. And I didn't realize it at the time until I went to go hike Mount Washington, and then slipping and sliding, like on the descent. I was like, oh my gosh, these fit like 2 months ago. I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know if I would say that this next challenge was related to the bariatrics, but it was part of like the journey of having to like exercise. Like, so exercise is definitely crucial because of the potential to lose muscle mass. I would go to the pool, and then I found out that my lungs were just hypersensitive to the pool water. And I developed pneumonia twice because of that. That was a challenge. Yeah.
Wow.
Didn't get COVID, but I developed pneumonia.
Wow.
Yeah, that was hard. Fortunately, I haven't struggled with loose skin.
You have not?
I have not.
Wow.
I felt like I was on the slower end of losing weight. I have a friend that had the procedure 3 months after I did, and he just dropped it quickly. I mean, that's the difference between men and women too, though.
Yeah.
But I think with the PCOS, having the hormonal disorder, it kind of like slowed things down a little bit. I'm still losing though, but I'm very fortunate.
I think that's a big thing that people don't realize is that the slow losses, because typically like when folks start out on any weight loss journey, is that they've usually had this weight for an extended period of time. And that if we have those quick losses, your skin is your body's largest organ. And if you treat it nicely, everything will work together harmoniously. So make it that loose skin isn't a catastrophic surgical option intervention that needs to happen after losses. And that the slow losses, more than just, I'm going to do it so I don't have loose skin. Slow losses, and I've seen this from many other people as well, when you have those slow losses, that truly allows for permanence, because it's not just the physical, it's the mental, the emotional. Like those slow losses add up to long-term maintenance, long-term sustaining of what you've achieved. And it makes it so much easier. It's almost like, as like little bricks. You just kind of like, your journey just builds a little bit more and a little bit more each day, instead of that, go hard, all or nothing kind of typical conventional diet culture mindset of like, do everything all at once, diet, this and that, change everything. Like, stop that. Like, the more simplified, more internal this process you make it, obviously the longer and more permanent these results are going to be.
Absolutely. I definitely have to focus on, there's like the 60 rule, 60 grams of protein a day, 60 minutes of exercise, and 60 ounces of fluid.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
I have to, like, those are like the must-haves in every day. And then take the vitamins. Yep. I have to chew my food 30 times before swallowing. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think I knew how to chew before surgery. I feel like I would take a bite, maybe chew a couple of times, and swallow. And if I do not chew correctly, it's not good. It's going to be an uncomfortable situation. I will say that there's been a couple of times that I've ended up in the school's nurse's office because I got distracted and I didn't chew something all the way. The biggest culprit is chicken. That was a learning experience. But so I don't like to eat a whole lot of meat. I'm not a vegetarian. I like more plant-based though, or the beans. So I end up having to drink my protein just to make sure that I'm getting all of that in, because I would not be able to eat enough beans in one day to get all the protein.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so no, it's been a great tool. I have no regrets. I think the only real complication, and I wouldn't say it is a complication, is just the iron deficiency. I have known other people that have had the procedure that have had complications, but that is part of the risk. With all of that said, I would do it all over again. I think, again, what helped me out the most was having done all of that hard work of peeling back those layers. And
that's something that's not commonly seen in any like weight loss method, regardless of what path you choose. Those hard attitudes, beliefs, and factors way down at the bottom of the onion, like in the inner core of that onion, they don't get addressed. And when they don't get addressed, that's when things don't be permanent.
So I feel like I'm choosing to eat to live.
Yes.
I'm not living to eat.
Yep.
And, you know, I used to be, I would almost say like hyper focused on what am I going to eat today? Or where am I going to get my sugar? Where am I going to, you know, get the soda? Like, where can I get a soda along the way to the next location, you know? So had to have my Diet Coke with lime.
So before we wrap everything up here, was there any last little tidbits that you wanted to share with folks listening today?
You know, I think it's important that you advocate for yourself and that you don't give up. You're looking for an answer and you don't get what you're looking for the first time. You have to keep fighting for that. I did have a little note. Where did I put it? Oh, so I know for me, I definitely feel like that this weight loss experience has given me a second chance at life.
Yes.
I feel like I'm finally living my life. I have so much energy after school. And I know that part of that was the sleep apnea, which that was resolved a year and a half post-op. I know that I wanted to go to bed like by noon, like that's not living right there. Right. Coming home, taking a nap after work and then waking up at 6 and then still going to bed for 8. That's not living. I mean, this is a lifelong commitment. Like I'm married to this. I can't divorce it. If I choose to stop following the rules, like there's consequences of where I could get sick or not feel great. But I think most importantly, above all, I've learned to forgive myself, to forgive my mistakes. You know, I look forward to making loving choices towards my body every day.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah, no, right. It's about making loving choices and it's about trying to make the smart decisions. Yep. It's about being compliant with the rules, if you will, because I do need to follow certain guidelines. Moving my body as much as I can and practicing stress management. Yeah. You know, and it's hard. It's hard adulting.
Yeah. Do you have any meditation kind of practices or anything that you do?
Not consistently, but I do have yoga cards. Oh, so one of the things from going to the eating disorder clinic was the guided meditation.
Oh, I love guided meditation.
Especially when you have the voices from Australia.
Yes, I'm with you on that. I'm totally with you on that. Side note, I'm going to give a little drop and the link for this will be in the show notes as well. I have this link through the app that I use. It's called Balance. I believe it's available on iOS for Apple devices as well as on Android. But click the link in there. It'll bring you to their website where you can download and have access to a year of their top tier premium services for free. Because they want people to not be stressed out and to have more meditation. And they've got your guided meditation in there with the relaxing, nice voices.
Oh my gosh. It's like the best.
Get about it. I'll send you the link here. But folks listening, it will be in the show notes. So go ahead and click that link if you want a free year of Balance. So Krystal, it has been fantastic hanging out with you today. I am super excited to reconnect regardless of what our paths were. The results and the lessons learned are, I get goosebumps again, are phenomenal and are deserving to be heard by as many ears as possible because these changes and ripples in health, as you know from your education with health education in general, I do want to we will revisit conversations because I am really interested in going over your experience and practices and all that stuff with the food education implementation of where you work and like how that goes. That's really interesting. I did a lot of work on that for my classwork as well. But Thank you so much, Krystal. I'm giving you a big virtual hug right now. We will stay in touch. I'm so excited for you. Keep me posted on how things go for you. And yeah, if you are interested in following or checking out Krystal, can folks check you out and follow you as well?
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome. Krystal, I'll put all Krystal's notes and handles as well in the show notes. So if you're interested in checking out her journey, go ahead and check out those links in the show notes. But thank you again, Krystal, so much. Truly, thank you so much. And we'll be in touch sometime soon.
Excellent. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you. You too. If you are in need of supportive coaching on your fasting journey, I'm here. I care. I know you can do it. I've walked the walk, and I'm proud to continue to talk this talk. I'm extremely passionate about what I do because I know it works, and you can have it too. TheFastingFocusLifestyle.com has my calendar and more. And again, thank you. Until next time, take care. The Fasting Focus Lifestyle Podcast. Copyright 2023. The information given within this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult your doctor before starting any weight loss method. Thank you.